You have to be your biggest fan. And when things are really tough and they're really rough and nothing's working, but there's something inside of you that says, I just have to follow that. Because you don't know who you're going to meet.
You're listening to the Grieving Together show, a podcast that journeys through grief with individuals, couples, and families who have experienced the loss of someone that they love. Hi, my name is Kelly Bro, co-founder of Redbird Ministries, a pro-life, pro-family Catholic grief support ministry located in the Diocese of Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm sitting down today with grieving families who have been impacted by loss, asking specific questions. How they found healing and hope in the middle of the storm, the lessons they learned, and tips we can all use to survive loss while staying close to our faith. I encourage you to lean in and allow God to love you through our words and take to heart what these incredible families have endured and how they have risen above their suffering. We hope you enjoy today's show. Today on the Grieving Together podcast, we have Stephanie Eckler. In 2016, Stephanie lost her son, Jackson Jumonville. He was only 7 years old at the time of his accident. Jackson had come down with the stomach virus at his dad's house. He went from a healthy child to passing away within less than 24 hours later. After getting to the hospital, Stephanie found out that Jackson was not intubated correctly and was declared brain dead. Jackson was an organ donor, and he saved 4 lives and gave eyesight. Stephanie found her platform to tell others about donation through losing Jackson. After his death, she could not believe that she was a grieving mother. She was in shock and felt like she was living in a bad dream. 6 months later, this bad dream was her new normal. She immediately felt the need to help other grieving moms, because as she helped others, she felt that it was helping her. She has felt the call to journey and talk to other grieving moms. Today, you will find Stephanie telling other grieving moms to call me, because what we are all looking for is something positive to this awful new life. God has a big purpose on your life, because this does not happen to many mothers, but when it does, you know you have a big purpose. Stephanie has been known to always say God knew that I would do anything for him. So taking Jackson home early has changed her forever, and now God has her full attention. She often shares that this is not her story. This is God's story, because her story would look different. She would be a mom with 3 living children and not a mom of 2 living and 1 deceased. However, she knows that we are just passing through this temporary life, and one day she will see him again. So she just tells her Jesus story of how grief changed her. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie Eckler. All right, so today we have on our Grieving Together show, Stephanie Eckler. So hey, Stephanie, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, we're surviving the coronavirus. So we're in quarantine right now. And I know that you're not here locally, but
Yeah.
normally she is.
Well, yeah, I said usually I am. I'm in Florida right now, but my husband works in Florida, so I'm actually in Florida, and I can still work from home. So that's what I'm doing now. I have a marketing company, so I'm always on the computers. But I'm from Lafayette, so living. We actually just we got a house in Sugar Mill Pond recently, about a year ago. So I'm in the Youngsville area.
Yeah, I was looking forward for you to come visit and we could do this together, because that's always fun to have coffee and chat, but that wasn't what God had planned. But we weren't going to let the virus stop us from doing this podcast, because we know how many lives it's going to bless. So I thank you for just improvising and allowing God to use us through technology. So thank you for doing that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your beautiful son, Jackson?
Well, I'm actually 49 years old, or will be this year in June. And I have 3 kids. I have a daughter who is actually expecting a child. She's got a 4-year-old. She's 28 years old. And then I have a son who's 14. He's actually 6'2". And then I have Jackson, who he's forever 7. So my my little redhead is, and actually the Redbird ministry, as I've told you in the past, that always hits home because Redbirds is we always called, when I refer to Jackson, I'm always calling him a redhead. So he was a redhead little blue-eyed boy, beautiful, healthy child who just never seemed to ever get sick, or he was prone to get hurt because he was so active, but as far as being sick, he was never sick. And October the 1st was when I received that dreaded phone call from his dad. And he had supposed to have been going to go play his first football game at the age of 7. And he had 2 soccer games that day as well. And so we were looking forward to this fun day. And instead I got a phone call. I got a text that morning saying he was sick and that he had a stomach virus. And that was around 8:00. And then after lunch, the dreaded phone call came in, and it was a panic call just saying I needed to get to the hospital that Jackson didn't look good. So I immediately jumped in my car, got to the hospital. And when I laid eyes on Jackson, I first thought he had drowned. His stomach was all distorted, and I could tell I heard his heartbeat. And I'm in the medical industry. Actually, my background has been, I've always been in the medical industry, I guess, for 25 plus years, but it's in the marketing world. So I'm not a nurse, not a medical person per se, but I've been around a lot of medical and nursing homes, hospitals, so forth. So when I saw him, I knew he wasn't there, but he was, if that makes sense, because I heard that heartbeat and I knew I had hope. They were lifted him to a larger hospital. And when we got in Lafayette, that's when we got the news that they were going to test him. They didn't think he had brain activity. So we found out what really took place with Jackson was with him having the stomach virus. And I tell parents all the time, how precious life is. The stomach virus, literally, he became dehydrated. And then when he got in the shower, they felt like he passed out and threw up at the same time. And he actually did not aspirate, which is the food going down into his lungs, because we actually ended up saving lives with his lungs. It actually stopped right at his throat. And his stepmom is a nurse, so she was able to clear his airway. And they got him, his heart was going, and his blood pressure and everything, but he was not intubated correctly. So the whole way to the hospital, they were pumping air to him, going to his stomach. And so Jackson went without receiving air or oxygen. So he was pronounced brain dead on October the 2nd, 2016. Mm-hmm. So very, very tough time. Very, very, very hard. Sudden death is, something that you never prepared for, especially for a child.
Absolutely. I was thinking this morning when I knew we were going to chat, I think him and Estelle were around the same age. Did we ever make a connection? When was Jackson born?
He was July the 23rd, I have to think, 2006. 2009. John's 2006. Okay. So I'm getting them confused.
Okay. Yes, him and Estelle were
2009. How old was Estelle?
Estelle was born January 6th of 2009, and then Emma passed away September 10th of 2009.
Yeah.
I knew that they were about the same age. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Jackson's fixing to have his 11th birthday. So
tell us about the organ donation, how that came about. How did you receive the news, or were you asked? What happened?
Well, what's, God's powerful. So the week before, this accident took place, I was driving in my car, and there was a story of organ donation that came over the radio. And I'm divorced, so my ex-husband was driving in his car, and apparently he was listening to the same station, or it was on this, he heard the exact same thing. And that was really the first time I sat in my car crying over listening to a beautiful story of organ donation, and never really thought about it. I have a heart on my driver's license, and I always said if something happens to me, yes, I would love to donate. But it is different when your child, when they tell you, he's brain dead. And I remember asking at the beginning, well, could I get a brain? Like you're in desperate mode. You're just thinking all the things. It just don't feel real at the time. So, of course, we made our hospital that day into a chapel. We were praying and praying. And I mean, we had healthcare people praying. We had family, friends. We had everyone in there praying. And I remember God speaking, saying that he would be the miracle. And at that time, I thought he's coming back. But then I realized, no, he's giving the miracle. And as we got into this process and hearing about, being a hero or being a donor, Libby Harrison, which is with LOPA, she actually is a friend of one of our cousins. So she came to the hospital, and when I remember looking at her and saying, I want to talk to you, because I knew Libby had, not only as she works for LOPA, but she was a grieving mom herself.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at another grieving mom in the hallway, and knowing that she was still standing, because I still tell her this all the time, I saw you and you were standing. And I knew if you could stand, I can stand too. So we went and met and we talked, and she told me her story about Justin.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing Justin's story, it gave me hope. And that's what it was about, was that hope that she gave me that day. And as we talked about donation, and they told me I'd have about 36 hours with Jackson, is what they thought. But they came back into the room and said, hey, we've got good news and we've got bad news. What would you like? And I said, I've had enough of bad news, so let's give me some good news,
Mm-hmm.
And the good news was that they found Jackson had somebody waiting for his heart, somebody waiting for his 2 kidneys, and somebody waiting for his liver, and somebody waiting for his lungs. And they said the bad news is they had a baby. They couldn't tell you, because of HIPAA and stuff. They couldn't give you a lot of information, but they told me that they had a baby that was about to pass away, and they were in urgent need of that liver. So the bad news is instead of having 36 hours, I was going to be down to 5 hours with Jackson, and that was it. And then the nurse looked at me and said, hey, if you want to pass these people by, and you need more time with your baby, you can. At that time, I remember looking at my family saying, I can't say no. I can't. I have to give that child hope, and we have to move on. And Jackson was already when you find out about brain dead, I mean, he's already went to see Jesus. So I needed to give those other family members hope. So at that time we said, yes, let's move forward and let's go fast. Jackson was, he was already with his father, and let's go try to save some lives. So we did. And I did find out later on that the little boy did not make it. He passed away before, in the middle of the operation is what I was told. But his heart recipient, his lung recipient, and his 2 kidney recipients all took. And I have heard from the 2 kidney recipients. One lives in New Orleans and the other one lives in North Louisiana. So, and I've written letters to the heart recipient. That was a 10-year-old little girl.
Oh gosh.
And at the time she was 10. And then I also wrote letters to the other family that received his lungs, which was another 10-year-old. They said around 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kidney recipients reached out to me pretty quick. So I've been knowing them now for, about 6 months after, so about 3 years or so. And actually, one of the ladies has spent Christmas with us. She's come and stayed with us for Christmas. So I got to hear their side of the story. And so with all this said and done, Jackson's become a hero. And we've just been blessed that that this was something that we were able to do, because not all families can do. Mm-hmm. A sudden death is, with being, brain dead, he was a perfect candidate for donation. And that's something else I guess I've learned in this whole deal, is most people don't get to say yes to donation because of how they passed away. And Jackson did. And so this is, right off the get-go has been a platform that I've used for my grief, and used to help others, help promote, help tell people when their family member goes to see Jesus, that they don't need that heart. They don't need those lungs. They don't need those kidneys. Leave them behind. Give them to somebody who does.
Yes.
So that's what I do and I say, and that's one of my platforms for this grief.
You've been volunteering with LOPA now as a grieving mom to go into, like Miss Libby was for you. You go and help others.
Yeah. Well, what I do, LOPA has when Libby started, there wasn't all these things out there for LOPA. A lot of people didn't know about LOPA. So now LOPA has events that we get to come and we get to talk, and they have things that help with the grief. And at that time we get to tell our stories, and those stories usually get recorded or talked about, or with the technology we have, Facebook and all these things, we get the word out, trying to tell, our story to help others to say yes. Because if I wouldn't have heard that story about organ donation a week before, and if Libby wouldn't have been there, I don't know if I would have said yes immediately. I don't know, because until you actually hear a story, you got to connect, and that connected me, both of those dots, and I was blessed to have both situations to happen. So I talk about it because I want somebody to say, oh yes, I remember that redheaded story, that redheaded little boy that saved 4 lives. And I think, one of the coolest things of it is I'll never forget Miss Wanda's story. She's the one that has his kidney, and she was not going to make it. I mean, she was literally on her deathbed, and when she prayed and prayed for a kidney, and she didn't want a kidney that anyone had drank or smoked or anything. Like, she wanted this perfect kidney. And so the doctors had been warning her she probably wasn't going to get this kidney. And she told them, oh, yes, I am. I've asked God for it, and he's going to give it to me. So when they walked in to tell her that they found a perfect kidney for her, they didn't tell her at the time it was a child's kidney. They just told her it was perfect. And she said, well, if it's so perfect, then why didn't I get both of them? And they said, well, you don't get two of them. You only can get one. And they didn't tell her until I think she came back to her appointment, and they shared with her that it was a child. And ever since when they shared it was a child, she could not believe it. One, we didn't know. I didn't know either. I didn't ever think about it. A child could give an adult a kidney, and his heart had to go to a child, and his lungs had to go to a child, but his kidneys help to adults. And I think that right there, that's just a miracle.
Yes, I see. I mean, I just see, like, one thing you said was like how you saw Libby standing, and I just think about, like, that's one like thing in the Bible whenever they talk about like Mary as Jesus's mother, like they use that word, she stood at the foot of the cross, and how, like most of us grieving moms, that seems nearly impossible. So just that beauty that you shared, that like you saw her still standing, like you knew what was going to happen,
Oh yeah.
Renunciation, like, and when Simeon professed like that he is going to die, like you knew that, and you said yes. Yep. That's just incredible to me. Like I couldn't give Emma's organs, like you said, like most people weren't, because she had H1N1 and other infections in the hospital. So that was never an option for us. But I just think that is so brave, and that, God, he uses everything, all the suffering, for his glory, and the ability for you to do that and to save other people's lives. That's incredible.
Well, thank you. But it's not, honestly, when you get to that point, when you have to make that decision, that's, I tell every grieving mom, and I truly, truly believe it, that we're all have big purposes. All grieving moms have huge purposes, that they, when your child passes, is the worst thing that ever can happen. But God uses us for something, and we have a big purpose. And I knew when I'm, on my knees at the hospital, and I'm praying and praying and praying, I knew he's fixing to use me. I didn't know and I still to this day don't know it's going to be for. I feel like every day he's uses me, but I know it's going to be something big, and I don't know where I'll be or what I'll be doing. And finally, maybe I'll say, hey, this is what it was. But I just know that, because I guess that's what I've had a lot of big moments already over Jackson's passing, and things of people. One of the largest was, right after Jackson passed, I got on Facebook, and I immediately started reaching out because I wanted to talk to other grieving moms. And at the time that I was doing it, I thought they were going to help me. And I realized I was helping them, because I was still, I always say, covered with peace at the time. God had, when you first lose a child, you're very numb, and that's just being covered with peace. And so I'm reaching out, and I'm talking to moms. And my husband now, Greg is his name. We were actually, at the time, we were not married. And so he would say to me all the time, didn't understand, men and women and other people, just everybody, we don't grieve the same, period. And he didn't understand. He wanted me all the time, and I needed to be with Grieving Moms is what I felt. And so I'm constantly on Facebook, and that's how I did it. I reached out when I'd see there's closed groups out there, just FYI, for all the Grieving Moms. There's Facebook closed groups that you can belong to all over. And so I would read their post, and then if I saw that they were hurting, I would message them and tell them to call me. And then I would get on my Facebook page, and I called, I started one called Soul Sisters, but I'd get on my Facebook page and I would talk. No makeup on, no hair done, just start talking, start helping. At the time, Grieving Moms, I didn't know what to do, and people would follow my story. And I was out delivering, like when Jackson passed away, with all his funeral arrangements, I gave all his flowers to people that didn't have flowers at their funeral arrangements. I would go and I took all my flowers and took them to the healthcare people. There was a lot of things we did at the very beginning. And I had people that were following our Facebook page and just watching. And there was a family right at Christmas time. So 2 months later, I received a card in the mail, and it was a family's, a lady that was writing, and she let me know that she was following our Facebook page. And the first time she ever prayed in her life was when she saw Jackson's picture when we were asking for prayer. And she said, well, she decided that day she was going to pray. And she said, I've never prayed before. She was married and had three kids. So they were a family of 5. And none of them had been to church. The kids, of course, hadn't been to church because the parents weren't taking them to church. And they would get in the bed at night, and she would, when they knew that Jackson passed away, they kept following the page, and she would always talk about me, and he'd say, well, let's see what Stephanie's doing, her and the husband. And they would read or listen to whatever I had to say. And so Sunday comes up, and he says, let's go to church. Let's do what she's doing. Let's go to church. We need what she has. Wow. And they decided to, she said, we don't go to church. And he said, Google it, find it, is what the letter said. Google it, find it. And she said they got into church, and he received Jesus in his heart. And she said, I first thanked God, but then she said the second person I thanked was Jackson.
Aww.
And she said, I wanted to share that because you just saved our family. And I handed the card. I was all in tears, and she sent Jackson a little gift, or me a gift for Jackson to stick on the tree, a little angel. And she'd sent John, I want to say, a $20 bill, so it was very sweet. And they were in, I want to say, Colorado. I can't remember exactly, but I know they were in a different state. And I handed him the card. And when I handed him the card, I saw the tears fall from his face. And he said, I will never say another word. And he hasn't. He has kept to his word that when I'm on Facebook talking to a Grieving Mom, there'll be times that we'll be in the middle of supper, and we try not to keep phones, but somebody will reach out to me, and I'll immediately jump up and go talk. And he knows it's, and I'll say it's a Grieving Mom, and I'll see something at 2:00 in the morning, and Grieving Moms on this closed Facebook page will put a post that they don't want to live. I say, call me, because there's not, a 1-800 number to call. There's not a book to tell you what really to do. There's a lot of suggestions out there, but there's not anything that really, at this time, I should say, and when you're going through it and it's fresh, there's nothing out there for us except to talk to another grieving mom and to get on our knees and ask Jesus to come into our heart. And from there, just ask him to cover us with peace. And that's what I did every day. And I still, when I wake up, that's what I do. And before I go to bed, that's what I do, because a grieving mom, as we know,
Yeah.
We have to have peace. We
Yeah.
can't, this grief that first year, I remember after the first year, after the first year went by, I looked at my face in the mirror and said, oh my gosh, I have to do something. I'm aging so fast. I have cried so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to do something. And, the first year, you don't realize how much you do cry. And you're younger than me. So, so you might not, I will say it might not have aged you like it did me, but man,
Mm-hmm.
I was at the time, I was 45. So I'm fixing to be 49 now.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard age to get hit because you're already changing. You're getting wrinkles and you're getting these things and man, my eyes were so puffy at all the time.
I didn't recognize myself. I was always this cheerful, just bubbly person, and like to see yourself looking just so bleak, and that was a hard pill to swallow. Like, where did she go? That's what I kept asking myself. Like, where did this light spirit go? Like, it was heavy and darkness, and like you said, like, you need Christ. Like, you can't do it by yourself. There is no way. I've tried it. It doesn't work.
Well, I also see, a lot of people, and I guess that'd be the other thing is I knew that most of these moms didn't have Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of these sites, and just forewarn all these people, is you can't talk about Jesus, which drove me absolutely crazy. And so I was going to get off of them because of it. And the good Lord was like, no. I could feel the Holy Spirit speak to me. No, he needed me on that site because there was no Jesus.
Yeah.
He needed me on that site. I got in it when you do all your texting to people, I got almost kicked off or banned several times because I would say the thing. Yeah. So now I realize that instead of me saying what to do, I say, this is what I did. Yeah. And they can't ban me from it. So I talk about Jesus in a different way. I say, and Jesus in my heart, and this is how Jesus, led me or whatever. I just change it to use him through me. And when I do it that way, I can do whatever. I can say whatever. They won't ban me from it.
It is so sad, like, to see all the posts from those, like, I've shared this with some of our priests about how, like, they just, like, I tell them, like, y'all have no idea, like, the people who are suffering, and those, like, I've seen posts like, God, like you said, like, I want to end my life. I want to be in the same place as my child. Like, there's just no hope. And it's different because there is some of those closed groups that are faith-based, and you can feel and see the difference. Like, when people are walking with the Lord, even though, sometimes, we're mad that, we're mad at him, you can tell the difference between the groups that are faith-based and that aren't. It's hard.
Right.
You feel it.
But I guess that's why we can't, I remember when the Holy Spirit spoke and said, you couldn't get off. I can't get off that because, that's where all the people are that I need to be talking to, because that's who I've reached. And I've spoken to people around the world, not just in the United States. I remember trying to translate because I didn't know. And I was like, okay, Lord, I really need you here because I don't understand.
You download that Rosetta Stone so that you can learn those languages.
Well, we ended up doing it through that was what's cool is you can do it through the phone. And when she would type it, it would translate, but it was just so wild. I was thinking, okay, here I am sitting here in Lafayette, Louisiana, and I'm speaking to someone in a different country, and she doesn't believe in you, Jesus. She hasn't heard of you. Like, it just, where I came from, a little town, Lily, Louisiana. And I don't know of anyone that didn't believe in Jesus. Everybody, it was a little country town, and I didn't even know until I got older. And I still really didn't know until I lost Jackson, how many people did not believe. I see Facebook now and I realize there's a lot of craziness, but living in that little country town, I would have never known it was that much craziness, because people just didn't do the things in that little country town that they do in New York City and they do in California. Now they might, but they don't. It was just the way the world is changed so much because we've taken God out of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And
I know we have a special place down here. I think the biggest reason is that we still believe in community and in family. Even those who aren't maybe deep into their faith, that's still how they're raised. So we're truly blessed to have that type of culture that we live in Southern Louisiana, that Southern hospitality. But for places, like you said, New York, like they don't, like telling someone hi on the street, like, and chatting about the weather, they don't do that. They don't.
No, I went to New York, and it was so much fun for me I remember talking to a lady on a subway, and she said, "You're not from here." I said, "No, I'm not." And she said, "I know that because you're talking to me."
Wow.
And I asked her, why don't people, they always had the headphones on and stuff. And she looked at me, she said, because most of the time when they're talking to you, they're trying to scam something off of you here in New York. And it made sense because I think we got taken not once, but twice from good talkers, when we were in New York, buying tickets and stuff. But that's exactly, it's just, it is a different way of life. And not that New York is bad, because we absolutely, that was one of the best vacations we'd ever taken. We loved it. It was just different, and I know there's grieving moms all around the United States that just need, one, they need Jesus, but two, they need to know that, there are moms out there that are standing and that are making it. And I haven't, I just made my 3rd year, so it's still new, it's still, I still cry. This past Christmas was probably one of my hardest Christmas ever, because, I do feel like I'm missing out,
Grieve a lifetime of memory, the different, everything. Every birthday you grieve that birthday. Every Christmas you grieve that Christmas. Everything. Like, Estelle, Emma, and Talon would have been going into high school this coming year, and so that was a new, because my niece is the same age, and so I'm seeing them grow through watching her, and so it's like a constant reminder. Even though I love my niece, I don't want to not be in her life. It's just a constant memory as, I watch her grow, that of what I'm missing out on. When my sister sent me that text that, that she was crying because she was registering Kaylin for high school. I couldn't even respond to her. It just broke my heart, so it's all of those memories. It's for the rest of our life, because the pain won't leave us until we get with Jesus.
Right. Well, I tell my husband, and I say this on a regular basis, and I tell John this all the time, that Jackson, I do not even have to worry about him getting the coronavirus. I don't have to worry about him being in a car wreck. I don't have to, that's the one thing in life that gives me peace, because I do not have to worry. And then John always says to me, and he doesn't have to worry about doing homework. So, and I was like, yeah, and he don't have to worry about paying bills, does he? So we try to smile at things, knowing that there's so many things that we might be missing out, but we're not missing. Like, I'm not missing that nothing is happening to him. I'm not having to worry about, cancer or anything else. And I know people are dealing with every day.
Yes.
And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that there is a place that he is, called heaven. And one day I'm going to see him again, because that's the other thing is some people don't have these beliefs. And I've sat with women doing my fingernails, get my nails done, and sit across from them, and they've got Buddha necklaces on, and they have talked to me about, they are on my Facebook page. So they're, they've seen my post, and they said, when their kids die, they're not going to get to see them again. I said, well, girl, you can change that. You can change that. That is, everybody gets this choice.
Yeah.
Everybody can make this choice. If you know about him, go for it. Don't let your child die and not know who Jesus is. And start, if this is something that you're thinking about and question about, start looking it up, So anyway, I've got a couple. I'm real close. I'm real close to talking to. I noticed the other day, actually, when I got my nails done, the necklace was gone. So, so we'll see, But I know she asks me all the time.
You planted a seed.
Yeah, you plant seeds
all
day.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us about, I know you do some stuff here locally, and help out part of the Acadiana Grieving Moms group. And you'll also do some social events and some events to help us to remember our children who've gone to heaven. So can you explain a little bit about that and how you got involved? Like, how did that all happen?
Well, immediately I talked about Soul Sisters at the beginning. I tell you that we all have a purpose, and we all are trying to figure it out. And you'll notice that Grieving Mom will jump out, and before you know it, she's got a nonprofit, because she is on a mission. And so I have sat back, and at first I wanted to start a nonprofit right off the get-go. And I didn't start because I've learned because I'm a marketer and I market. So I've learned that I'm helping other nonprofits with their marketing piece. My part, I do have a big plan to help grieving down the road. I've actually, and President Trump, or if you're watching or listening to this video, I've reached out to you. I have, in the middle of the night, I have literally jumped on and thought, how can I get in touch to a senator or to a president? I have in my head a big vision that the good Lord has given to me of how we can help grieving people. Mm-hmm. And I know one day somebody's going to call me and say, I need that vision. And I'm going to say, here it is. You and I spoke, and you look how well you're doing with Redbird Ministry. Mm-hmm. You've just jumped on, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
With Redbird Ministry. And there's a lot of things out there. So Acadiana Grieving Moms, I think I don't want to say how many members. I know it's over 200 members, 200 Grieving Moms. And what we do is there is, and there might be more than that. But we get together and we do we just get together and we call it grieving gatherings. And so we try to help, and we try to promote and ways to help grieving parents go through different seasons in this grief process. And I have, instead of, I love to do events. So I help out with these events. I help out with the marketing pieces. Acadiana Grieving Moms, it's a closed Facebook page. And what I can see, like what I wish would happen is, and that other grieving moms, because once I start talking to grieving moms all over, and I know there could be chapters everywhere, with different places for everyone to have a place to grieve. But does now is they make posts and positive things, but when you're also having a tough time, you're able to write. You're able to if you're having a bad day, you're able to reach out and say, hey, can somebody call me? Mm-hmm. And that's what we need. and so I'm that mom usually that is calling, or I'm that mom who says, hey, let's get together for a gathering. Whether it's I've had them at my house, I've had retreats, I've had different deals, and it just all depends on what is at that time needed,
Yeah. You do
and
get
then
well.
and if people need, my other thing is if people actually need like to do an event, I just give suggestions. Hey, this works, or I don't know about that, or yes, this is a great way of getting people, because but then the day of, you might not be able to go, so that's the tough piece, is you get anxiety thinking about it, and then once you're there, you're so thankful that you did go.
Yeah.
And then when you come home, you realize that, oh, I needed that.
Absolutely.
So, and that's one thing I can say with us all when we do get together, is that is what everybody when they come home, you get all the thanks, the messages. I'm so glad I went. And so that it makes you keep doing it like you're doing it. That people are telling you, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, the enemy manifests himself in our wounds. So those attacks that we get before, like, don't want to go, like our anxiety, our fear, and all that is just like amplified.
Right.
And you get together and you see the light of Christ in each other and find that, and just when you gather in his name, there's power.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you for taking the time out of your day to share with us. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, how do they contact you?
Well, on Facebook, you can, it says Stephanie Cook Eckler. That's the best way, or my phone number. I give out my phone number all the time, which is 225-405-2771. When they Google me, they'll usually come up. My business is Points to Marketing.
Okay.
They'll see that. Anyway, I talk to people, phone, messenger, anyway, any way that you can, they want to talk. I love doing this. This is pretty neat that you can,
Cool. There was something in the podcast that you shared. You said that there's not an 800 number to call. Do you think that might be a plan in the future to create this 1-800 number?
I already have, that's one of the things when I wrote out to the president, that is that big plan.
Look what I put, 800 to call. I think that's genius. I think we need to do something about that, Stephanie.
Yeah, but it's getting the politicians. I've already got because of my background also being in the healthcare industry, I worked in mental health. And so in mental health, there is a 1-800 number, like when you're trying to get into an inpatient hospital or outpatient, they have, and actually I think, a lot of the LOPA and all those things, they have a call center, I'm pretty sure. But I know in the mental health world, there's a call center, with different companies per se. And I always say there needs to be a call center for grief.
Oh, yeah.
And what I would love is the call center not to be just specialized in child loss, but to any kind of grief, because then you can talk and you can figure out. My other piece of it that I love to do is I love to connect people together. So that's what the Soul Sisters plan was, if you lost your child to drowning and they were young and that was their ages, then connect them to more moms that they can share that same story, because I have met the grieving moms that I've become a connection more with are ones that are similar to my story or happened around the same time, or something connects us, like you're looking for that connection. Just like now you just told us that our kids are connected, but we were already connected through helping grieving moms. So our connection was immediate. Then when you had Redbird, oh my gosh, it's like Redbirds are, I mean, I got redbirds everywhere, girl. So when we do something, redbirds, I've got these big, tall redbirds. I got redbirds everywhere. But that's what we do, is we look for that connection. And when you get to talk to somebody else on that other line or on the phone or wherever, and they have the exact same stories to some degree, then you can understand that they understand you, because at the time when all this is going on, you feel like no one understands you, but another group of mom does.
Absolutely. That's why it's important for us at each of our events. We partner losses. So anyone who comes that's experienced miscarriage, they're partnered with miscarriage couples, or like at our Grieving Moms Retreat, our leader, our Grieving Mama leader is, that type of loss. So it's important because, if you bring that same group of people back into the same room after that initial thing, like I've made so many friends with, all ages of loss, but initially like that, they're, like you said, they're looking for that connection. It's like their life preserver. Like, I need a life preserver. And then once you, like, that fear in your heart settles and you can start to see, like, okay, our story, it's different. Our ages are different, but grief, man, it manifests itself the same kind of way, even though all of our stories, our ages, our circumstances is different. A lot of times it manifests its way. And so
I've learned we say the same things. A grieving parent does. We might say it at different times, but we say the same words, and the same things bother us if somebody else says it. But if another grieving parent says it, it wouldn't bother us as much.
Exactly.
It's things that set us off differently when someone else says it versus when we learn all that. That's the thing about grief. It's just funny when you get around a bunch of grieving parents and how you can talk. And that's why those gatherings are so good, because we can sit there and talk and we all understand it. But if you were going to another party or another gathering, no one's going to probably talk about they're going to talk about their kids that are alive. And so we don't have that opportunity to talk about us. And that's what makes those gatherings so good. So
absolutely. Well, we've come to the end of our show today, and we just want to thank Stephanie Eckler for joining us and spending this hour with us, sharing the story of her beautiful son. Thank you for listening today to the Grieving Together show. Our hope is that you were able to find comfort in your grieving journey. To find out more about what resources and events Redbird Ministries has to offer, please visit us at www.redbird.love or visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Please make sure that you subscribe to our email list so that you can stay current on what is offered. If our show has touched your heart and you would like to make a charitable donation, you can do so on our website at www.redbird.love/donate. Lastly, if you would like to sponsor an episode, please reach out to us at kelly@redbird.love. We leave you today in the two hearts. May God protect you and keep you, and God bless you.